Welcome to the city. I'm Anthony Wilson, the Communications Director for the City of San Angelo. And you've probably seen us talking a lot lately about the San Angelo Stock Show and Rodeo, and here we go again. We have with us today the Marketing Director for the San Angelo Stock Show and Rodeo Association, and I might add, one of our City Council members, Tom Thompson.
Thanks for letting us be on today, Anthony.
I'm proud to have you here. So let's start from the beginning. We want to pull the curtain back and take people behind the scenes of the rodeo, because you're very intimately involved in the production of the rodeo, which is San Angelo's signature event. So let's start from the beginning. When does the planning for each subsequent year's rodeo begin?
Probably 6 weeks before this one starts, we're already working on next year. It's not uncommon for us to sit down and say, you know what, maybe next year we tweak this a little bit. So to be honest, like I tell people, we do about a year's worth of work in about 6 weeks out there, because it's 20-hour days and that. But you're always thinking of what would make it better next year. And I think our rodeo needs to be about the fan experience and the fan engagement, and that's what keeps them back. So it's always on our mind. You're always looking for that piece of entertainment that'll grab somebody's attention, and you want them to leave there going, wow, that was the best thing I've ever been to.
And so, for instance, right now, and like you mentioned, we're about 6 weeks out from the rodeo. Are there things that you're working on right now for the 2020 rodeo?
You know, we are talking to specific stock contractors. We book our entertainment, our subcontractors. You book years in advance because you book them 2 or 3 years. We're already looking at who's going to replace specific ones that are going to come. Our entertainer, our barrel man, you look at announcers. Yeah, we're all watching to see how things are going. And it's a very limited field. And I'll bring up one. There was an awesome announcer named Hadley Barrett, and he passed away the past couple of years. He announced 2 or 3 major rodeos in Texas. So when that happens, you want to make sure that you have enough announcers here to cover, which we'll maybe discuss here in a little bit, but it's always on our mind from somewhere.
Now, there's so many logistics involved with the production the size of the San Angelo Rodeo. Can you give people a sense of what all is involved? I mean, how many different little details have to be attended to in order to make that well-oiled machine run the way it does?
Well, number one, there's 1,000 volunteers, but just on our rodeo committee, we've probably got 50 or 60 that know the intricate workings of the Coliseum. They know how to run down through the popcorn pits that are underneath the bleachers. Our Coliseum doesn't have any chutes or pins attached to it. So every animal that you see come into our arena has to be trucked over. So during the middle of the day or during the middle of the morning, our stock contractors bring in big semi-loads of, bucking bulls and bucking horses and cattle over. We preview them. They put them out on the dirt. You let them run around a little bit. We sit in there on horseback, and we'll be visiting with our arms crossed. And they get used to it, and then you run them out the exhaust gate or exit gate. But you do that all day long.
And why is that? Why do they need that exposure to the venue?
If they don't know where the out gate is, they don't know when they're through with the ride, they don't know how to get out. I mean, it's like you're in a round room with all these doors, and they don't know how to go. But once you get an experienced bucking horse or bull, they know. And sometimes if you watch, you'll see a spotlight go down, and the spotlight will lead. We might dim the lights a little bit, which now we can do with our light. And you'll see in some venues, the spotlight will lead them. Those animals are trained to follow a spot, and it gets them out of the arena. But there's, things like that you don't realize. There's production meetings that we have that are 2.5 hours before the show. And we sit down and say, here's our lineup, here's our timeline. We dial that down to about within a minute to a half minute on when exactly things are supposed to move from end to end.
So, Tom, what's the one detail that must be attended to that you think might surprise the attendees the most? Something that people would say, I had never even thought about something like that.
It's always our opening. I mean, you want it to grab. And we have such a detailed group of professionals that are known throughout the industry. We have the best of the best of the best that put on rodeo working for us and hired. And in our openings, I mean, we have a countdown clock that goes to the half second. So if we start at 7:30, at 7:29 and 15 seconds, the hot song comes on. It runs for 33 seconds. Then we have this amount of a laser light show, and it's tied down into the finish of the laser light show will be the pyro. And we've got boards out on the ground, 4 boards that those go off. It leads right down to a 5-second interval where the gate has to come open. Boyd Paul Hemus is coming in on his horse. And people don't realize we've probably got 30 or 40 people all working in production at that point. It's one of those things, once somebody volunteers and starts to help, they're just like, I had no idea what it took to pull that off. And you know what? That is the greatest compliment, to where they don't see what has to be done and it just happens smoothly. You couldn't ask for a better compliment than that.
So speaking of the opening, who comes up with the theme and then all the logistics of the dance movements, if you will, of how that all happens?
Justin Jonas, my executive director, and I share a lot of those duties, and we'll bounce things back and forth. You want to introduce what professionals will be there. You want to give some entertainment on the video. You want to utilize your lights, but that responsibility lies with me and lies with Justin. We've had different openings before. Justin has a more entertainment vision, I'd say, than I do. And it's like we had some drummers sometimes. We had a sheriff on a bull that we opened with when they're riding, and you know what they put on the line versus what they would do for rodeo. So there's always a theme about it. And this year we're kind of pushing more towards a lot of people don't realize we're a 501c3. So we'd like to feature a little bit more about our foundation and the, over $1 million we give to kids every year.
So your venue obviously is the Foster Communications Coliseum. I want to talk a little bit about preparing the Coliseum for the rodeo. First of all, how does all that dirt get inside?
Well, it's lots of trucks, and you're going to fill up. It's about 180, 190 feet long and roughly 100-something feet wide, and we bury dirt in there until it's about 12, 14 inches deep. And we actually have boards in the back that keep it from going around the causeway that comes up in the back. But we'll start January 21st, and they'll bring in 6 to 8 trucks, dump trucks, that just solid make loads, and we load in a line. We have a maintainer that does a laser leveling, and it used to take a day or two. Richard Albert, who just retired this past year, Richard used to spend 2 days, and he would put it in there and go, but technology has improved the ability he has to level things and get it out. This year, Mike Martin and Marcus Herrera are going to do that. People that have done dirt work for 20, 30 years. Richard's retired. We're going into another group, but we lay dirt, and it'll be a day before we get the dirt where we want it, just in the Coliseum, before we start letting anybody go on top of it.
And people have to realize this is not just any old dirt. This is special dirt.
This is, people make a living maintaining dirt at rodeos, and Richard Albert fortunately has grown into this and other songs, but we have a special collection and mix of sand, silt, and clay. What we have in our Coliseum has a lot more of a clay base to it. So it packs well and holds well, but it holds for a certain period of time, about 2.5 hours. The traffic you have over it after that is prohibitive to do anything later than that because it's too packed down. The dirt that's in the Spur Arena, that's more of a sand mix. We'll run the barrel racing slack in there, and we'll run 260 runs over 5 or 6 hours, and that maintains itself for a performance horse making a turn.
So once you have the dirt in, is that when all the bucking chutes and pins get assembled in there?
Absolutely. There's a method to our madness, but it's dirt in. Then we put the steel in, and the steel will be our bucking chutes, and it's also the timed event in. And these things come down to about the 1/4 inch, and we have a set of plans measured out. And if you'll notice, they're a little bit curved to where they attach to the wall on the timed event end, and they're angled just a little bit on the rough stock end. That way, as animals come around, they don't come into a corner. You want them to come in, and if they're running around, they're getting a flank strap off. It's all shaped different, and we take photos every year, and we hand out these photos in January and February when we start setting up, and every piece of every pipe lines up with a specific row and column and seat. You'd be amazed. We pulled it down to less than a 1/2 inch.
And of course, one of the ways that the rodeo generates lots of money is through advertising and sponsorship. And so that place is covered with all sorts of banners and signs and so forth. How do you get all of those things hung?
I will say there's a production group on the rodeo committee that helps hang those, and we have all these banners, everything lined up. Once we get the dirt finalized in, all the lights, we basically insert enough things to do a concert. Lights, rigging, video boards on both sides. Then we turn around and say, we're on our final 12 hours before tomorrow. So we hang our long scroll, it's a banner, but it's basically 150 feet long and 4 different segments, and it has to match. And accordingly, there's a whole crew of about 30 volunteers that have done this for years, and they come in and we tie wrap it till we're tired of seeing tie wraps, but banners, contract agreements, and we check off the list and we're done.
So there are also a lot of logistics involved with your ticket sales, and you sell most every seat to the rodeo throughout its 2-week run. How are season tickets managed?
Season tickets we've had for about 7, 8, 9 years. It hasn't been anything we've really published and promoted until the last year when demand has gone, but there isn't a large venue out there that has an annual event that doesn't have season tickets. So with these season tickets, you could come in, purchase them. You come into our rodeo office between March and November, come in and talk to one of the people there, one of our executive secretaries, and they'll literally let you find a set of season tickets. Now, when you buy that, that's your ticket for all 12 performances. You can't buy, just for these nights or something. It's yours for the entire thing. And if you did the math on it this year, it's like $199 for one seat if you bought it for all 12 performances. There have been some people that have found that to be a lot more painless and easy to do just by buying 4 seats for 12 straight performances.
So, of course, the great seats in the place are the cushioned seats in the box seats. How does one get a box seat?
It's one of the most difficult things in the world, one of the most popular questions I get. Excellent question. There are legacy box seats that have stayed within these families for years. Linda Rhodes is retiring this year, and I think she's watched 1 or 2 in her entire time of 30 plus years actually be turned in. I mean, these things are written in wills and passed down and go on. There are some sponsor box seats that I sell to sponsors that are part of their package. Those things are done for advertising and for marketing and revenue generation. And those things are priced considerably higher than the legacy seats that we talked about before. Very seldom do they come available. When they do, I usually have a list of sponsors that say, I want the added investment of sitting in those box seats.
So how much has having online sales helped with your ticket sales?
It's been, I don't know if you watched opening day of sales when we had it on January 2nd. In the first 3 minutes, our cent shootout was sold out. Our web hosting facility from Austin, Sapphire, called up and said, just an FYI, you're selling over, I forget how many 100 tickets per minute. What stat? She goes, we haven't seen this with anybody, and we have over 300 venues. The demand we have for those seats, it's by far the easiest and most fair way, I'd say, to let the whole population go and pick their seats. And just going online, I can't think of anybody that doesn't enjoy going online and picking out the seat you want, having it in your hand and having your receipt. I think you'll see more of it in the future. It's only our 2nd year to do it, but we've been very pleased with it, and we think it's a very good, I'd say, fair way to get everything out and have that base out for people to choose from.
So last year, it being your first year, what percentage of your total ticket sales were conducted online?
I would say we probably did at least half last year, and we'll do a little bit more, probably approach maybe 60% this year. Our season tickets have grown exponentially the last 5 years. And those rows push up to about row 12, 13, and 14. And so if you look at, we have 22 to 24 rows in there, we're getting pretty close to that 50% area. A good rule of thumb is you're going to send 50% of your ticket sales the first 3 or 4 days you're open. And then the rest of them will come over. But what we like to tell people is we have roughly 30 to 40% availability right now. Some of the feature nights are sold out. But on the matinees and the Wednesday military night and the Tough Enough to Wear Pink night, there's lots of excellent seats available.
Well, speaking of which, you have lots of seats available for $10, depending upon which performance it is, which is an incredibly low price for a show like the San Angelo Rodeo. How do you manage to keep those ticket prices so low? And some people would say even your cent shootout, which is your most popular performance, that's a very reasonably priced ticket as well.
You just nailed a range from $10 from a matinee and a Wednesday, Thursday night, all the way up to a $30. I think we're all about wanting it to be fan engagement and family friendly. You'll see those are perfs that, some people want to go see the nicest, highest, classiest, best thing they can, and that's traditionally our cent shootout and PRCA finals. You'll find those priced at, $25 and $30, which compared to a night out, I know when I take my wife out, which she'll tell you I don't very often, but when we go out, it's nearly a $100 ticket. Going to the rodeo is 60% of that. Then you look at if you want to take the entire family and go on a Saturday or Sunday afternoon, it's $10.50. All right, you can spend $50 and take 5 or 6 kids, go have a good time. It's good, I would say family-friendly entertainment. So that's where we're at. I mean, you look at your tickets and say, our Friday nights and Saturday nights are our premium nights, and that's the one where we have a big demand for. We'll price those there. But on the ones that you look at, it's a family-friendly type event. We've kept those at $10, $12.
I'm just guessing that your cent shootout at $30 a ticket is way more affordable than a performance of the Houston Rodeo or the San Antonio Rodeo.
It is. I would say that's simple. If you look at the National Finals Rodeo, it's $100 and something a ticket. We don't have a concert, so we're not selling a concert ticket with our rodeo ticket. The ones you just mentioned, we like to say they're great concerts that have a rodeo with them, and it's our little pun back and forth as colleagues within an industry. But yeah, for $30 for us compared to $50 to $75, and it's not even a sellout down there. They're trying to sell out a stadium, $70, $80 tickets, and there'll be something online for that scalpers have, but we try very hard to keep ours within line, so we think we're a good deal.
So, well, since you mentioned about the concerts, I know the question always comes up, I'm sure you've addressed it 100 times. Why does the San Angelo Rodeo not have a concert?
The way our event is designed, and Justin Jonas is all over this. I mean, we would love to provide some premium high-end entertainment, but with that, we have to get everybody out of the Coliseum and then sell them a ticket to come back in. Or we would have a $50, $60, $70 ticket. I don't know if that fits Angelo. I don't know if we brought somebody in, and there's a lot of risks to that. I mean, the city knows that. There's everybody, when you look at having a concert, who else might have an event on the same day? So we looked at it this year. I mean, Justin spent hours talking to some different entertainers. What would it take to bring them in? And what it would take, we'd have to change our entire speaker system. While we have the system, we would have to move it out. We'd have to bring in a stage. So if our rodeo starts at 7:30, it finishes about 9:20, 9:15, then you've got to bring in basically 2 trailers or stages and get them set up. Then you sell a ticket. By this time, we're approaching 10:15. And can you sell enough tickets to make that worthwhile? And I mean, if you're going to look at a good entertainer, Anthony, I mean, a guest is anywhere from 15 to 40, 50,000. That's a lot of money at $20 a ticket. And after you look at their costs and the production of just getting set up, sometimes it's just been cost prohibitive. We want to do it. We just hadn't found the best way to make that mix yet, but we will. We'll figure it out.
Let's turn our attention back to the livestock. How does all that livestock in the rodeo, when we're talking about the bulls, the broncs, the calves, the steers, the horses, how do all those get to San Angelo and then get into the Coliseum?
Pete Carr is our stock contractor, and I think this year he had 16, 20 animals at the national finals, and this is his passion. He has a construction business too, but his passion is rodeo and being a stock contractor. So he doesn't have enough to put it all on himself, and a lot of these horses, you don't buck them more than about once every 2 weeks. Talking about the life of Riley. I mean, animal welfare is good in the rodeo industry. While some people may argue that, to go and work about 8 seconds and then just sit around for a month or 2 or 3 weeks and just eat and graze, it's great. But Pete lines up some subcontractors that will work under his license or his card. He'll bring them in. They'll truck in here. We'll have a group the first weekend that'll move out on Monday, a group that'll come in the second weekend on Friday. They'll move out again on Monday, and then we'll bring in a batch in the last. But there's going to be, cattle trucks and horse trucks coming in the entire time. When they get here, we have to house them all. We have to feed them. Then go back to what we talked about earlier. We have to drive them over to the Coliseum, especially if they're horses or bulls that haven't been here, preview them the arena, truck them back out, go them back out, bring them over. So there's a lot of logistics involved in that. And it's amazing what they do, but the guys that do it, it's an everyday occurrence. And it's real funny. You walk up to them and they're out by their bucking stock and they got a handful of hay or something or other. This old horse is eating this, and you reach over the fence and scratch it on the head. and then 3 hours later you may see it in the arena, and that is, Dirty Jacket, one of the best broncs in the world. But they know. They have their 8 seconds, the shine and the go. Livestock is just awesome in how they perform, and God gives a blessing to beasts when they do that.
So where do those animals come from?
There's a group of people that breed bucking stock for a living. The Serbies were a contractor for us before we went to PCAR. They have a ranch in Colorado. I think they have like 200 or 300 mares. Well, if you're talking about something that's expensive, buy a female equine that eats 3% of her body weight a year, and she's bred for a year, so she doesn't use, but they raise a lot of their own bucking stock. PCAR will prefer to buy stock that's already had a few outs and performances on it. There's a huge bucking horse sale in Las Vegas every year during the national finals, and it's not uncommon for horses to sell there $15,000 to $50,000.
The rough stock, your bucking broncs and your bulls, they're really athletes in their own right, aren't they?
To watch something that's 2,000 pounds jump straight up in the air, be able to kick one way and twist the other, they're performance athletes all the way, and we don't give them enough credit. And I was fixing to say, like in WWE, there's a good guy and a bad guy. In the world of rodeo, a ton of us, we're usually rooting for the horse and the bull. We want to see that contestant, when he's done, physically you have given him all it took. It took every bit of energy and power and strength he had to ride that bull or horse. And if you ask the crowd to stand up and applaud for who they like best, 9 times out of 10 it'd be for the livestock. They're performance athletes.
So how is it determined which cowboy is going to ride which bull or which bronc?
Random draw by the PRCA, the Professional Rodeo Cowboy Association, has a format, and they will actually draw from the pen of available athletes that are up for, let's say, a Friday night. They have a lineup sheet of contestants. Let's say we were all contestants that go through here. Okay, first one out, let's just go through here and say it's J.R. Vizane. And they pull that, he got up, Buffalo Nightmare. And they would go and they randomly draw them and assign them. And then you go up that night. So what a lot of people don't realize, some of these horses don't like going first. Some of them can't go last and sit in the chutes that long. So there's a buck order that we have to make. There's a delivery. If you see them come out and the chute gate open, there's a right-handed delivery and there's a left-handed delivery. So the art of this is to watch a chute boss and a stock contractor take this list of 12 bulls or 10 horses and say, okay, I've got these 3 horses that they need to go out first because I can't keep in the chutes long. I've got these that are good horses that'll sit there as long as I need. I got these that I'm going to bring in at the tail end, and they'll sit for about 2 minutes, but I have to get them out. It's art to watch them do it, and they do it just so seamlessly. This horse is going out first. He's got a right-handed or a left-handed delivery. Well, I've got 7 right-handed delivery horses that are predominantly that. How many can I go with the left-handed and turn them out to where they step to the left? It's a well-oiled machine, and to watch people do it, it's just fascinating.
And so how's it determined among the cowboys which performance that they're going to compete in?
They will submit with a preferred performance. And it's, our book's open today. And so as soon as you enter, the sooner your name goes in, and you have a preference of when you want to compete. You go for that one until it fills up. You list a secondary and a third preference that you want to go. Usually out of those 3 performances, you get pretty close to where you want to be. We overlap 2 weekends, our first 2 weekends with Fort Worth. We turn around and overlap our second, third weekend again with San Antonio. So there's a little circuit between Fort Worth, San Angelo, and San Antonio. So if they draw up there on the final weekend and they make their short go, they're on our second weekend. So they're going to try to draw for another event. And to them, making a 5-hour drive or an overnight drive to get to another event is nothing, especially when it's within 4 hours. So it's random draw, and there's a trade system within the PRCA. And if they have to trade to swap out, it's, hey, I know you're up Friday night, I drew up Wednesday, I need to change. Can you change? It's a big group of friends that work in that industry.
And how much do they pay in entry fees?
It's standard entry fee, let's just say it's between $200, $300, and $400, depending upon your payout. We do $140,000 worth of added money here. Last year, our PRC payout was $473,000. Doesn't include our cinch payout on top of that. So we paid nearly $600,000. It's a graduating scale. The more people that enter, the further it pays down. in roping events, if you have more than, let's say, 60 or 70 contestants, it's going to pay 1, 2, 3 in a go, and let's say 4 places in an average. If you double that number, well, the payout goes twice as far down. So there's a graduated scale to make sure the money gets allocated out. The more people that show, the more and the further deep go the entries.
You mentioned about $600,000 in prize money. Where does all that money come from?
Well, their entries cover a bunch of it. We'll have roughly 1,100 contestants. So anywhere from $200 to $300 a pop. That's quite a bit of money. The San Angelo Stock Show and Rodeo Association, to put us in that league where we want to be, we make an added $160,000 that we insert into there. And so when you take all those monies and entries up, it's a lot of payout and a lot of purse.
So as I mentioned, or as you mentioned earlier, you talked about slack. Not all of the competition occurs in the Coliseum. Talk about slack, what it is and why it's necessary.
We have 10 performances before we get to our finals. So the best way for me to hopefully prescribe this or to tell it is, let's call that 5 sets of pairs. We have, in our timed event is the only place we have slack. We limit our rough stock. We have 10 performances, 12 guys the most, we'll take 120. We'll cut off entries at time. But in our timed events, we take permits too. So you can compete as a card member or kind of an amateur status with a permit. With that, our performances are 2 go-rounds. So you have to do a performance back-to-back and perf-to-perf. So we're in sets of 4 or 2. Our first weekend, if you're a timed event contestant, you'll compete on Friday night and Saturday morning, or you'll compete Saturday night and Sunday matinee, but you'll perform in 2 back-to-back performances. You can only take 70 basically in that. If you look at how all your sets roll out, we might have 164 tie-down ropers. We might have 180 steer wrestlers. So what you have to do is you have to have a slack that has to be identical in venue to what they do at the rodeo. So we have our slack February 4th and 5th on the same grounds in the Coliseum, and all those extra people are going to get 1 run on Monday, and they're going to come back to the following perf and do another run on Tuesday. So it's the same scenario and fairness as the people that compete in the rodeo. Performance to performance, back to back.
And so if they do well enough in slack, then they get a chance to perform?
Absolutely. They will actually come back, and what's one of the great things about our rodeo is we let anybody with a permit come. So if you're a young person, let's say by the name of Ty Harris, hometown cowboy, and you break out and he's up for, it's rookie of the year status is what he got out of that. He can compete against the pros. It's like bring your A game. Now we seed in the ranked people into the performances because we want the very best. And in our performances, now they can trade out, but 90% of what you see will be somebody that's ranked in the top 30. That will be during the rodeo. All the others will be in the slack, but that doesn't prohibit you from making our finals. The top 12 and any ties for a top 12 will come back for our finals performance. Doesn't matter if you're Anthony Wilson, from San Angelo, Texas, and you've got a permit. If you qualify and beat them on 2, come on.
So is the slack open to spectators?
Absolutely. It's in the Coliseum, free entry.
Free entry?
Free entry. Walk in the Foster Communications Coliseum, 10 o'clock till probably we'll be done about 3 or 4 that Monday and Tuesday. Absolutely, come watch it. It's great.
And you said that was February?
February 4th and 5th.
4th and 5th. So as you talked about earlier, the presentation of the rodeo is a huge production, and you mentioned about these production meetings. So tell us again what that happens before each performance and what happens at those meetings?
We'll go down a list of sponsors, about 2.5 hours, depending on what our time frame is. For our 7:30 performance on Friday night, we'll have a production meeting at 5. We'll have all the announcers, we'll have all the pickup men, we'll have a stock contractor, we'll have all our production stage, lasers, lighting, and sound, and we'll all sit around a table. I'll hand them a format of here's what we have tonight, here's the order of events. We'll be checking with Procon to see how many we have in each event. We'll be establishing a buck order. We'll run through a quick list. As we go through there, we look for anything and how we work our entertainment into it. Steer wrestling takes a lot of time between, so you'll see our entertainer or visiting with our announcer. You'll see them doing walk and talks. During the barrel racing, you'll see us doing some kiss cam stuff to make sure we keep the audience in. All of that comes from the production meeting. We're going to run kiss cams today. Hey, what entertainment are you going to do to our entertainer? What's going to be your show tonight? Is it 6 minutes long? Is it 8 minutes long? You know, do you need something to speed it up? I mean, literally, we're planning every transition from the rough stock in to the timing in down to the minute. All right, as soon as this is done, I need this video to go up. I need this to happen. I want the crowd always watching for entertainment, and that's what those people do. And you move from in the end. We'll spend 30 to 45 minutes in a production meeting before every performance just to make sure those things come out smooth.
Part of your entertainment is your announcer, and Boyd Paul Hamus has been the announcer at the San Angelo Rodeo for many years now. But this year he's going to have a little bit of help. Talk about that.
Boyd is, in our opinion, he is the best announcer in rodeo. And that's an arguable statement from me, but I will say he manages a crowd like nobody else. And Boyd's a perfectionist, and he's probably harder on any committee he works with than any other person that's there production-wise, but he wants us to be flawless. This is his favorite rodeo. He says, I don't care about Houston, I don't care about Vegas, whatever. This rodeo is one of the gems in rodeo, and I want to be the biggest part of it. Boyd right now is in Denver, and he's going to do 30 performances in Denver in January before he comes to us. He'll finish up the final performance in Denver January 27th. Our first performance is February 1st. So he'll basically get a drive home on Monday, and he'll be here on Wednesday if he even goes home. We'll do a rehearsal on Thursday and then go with Friday. So that's a lot of things to go in and put on a voice that's worked for many years. And it was his suggestion, the only thing that'll make a rodeo better from where we are right here is if you add some announcers. Give me some different things to hear a different viewpoint. So we're going to bring in Andy Seiler, who works with Boyd at Houston. He's a young announcer out of Ocala, Florida, and very professional man. He announces some banquets at the NFR. He'll do some things, I think, at San Antonio after he finishes here. He'll help Boyd the first weekend. I think there's a lot at risk there. You just don't know if you get sick or when you get sick or things. So we have to be prepared. These guys, even if we don't use them, I have a spare there. We might let them do sponsor liners. We might let them go do some meetings and things. But that first weekend, I just got to have Boyd a little insurance and give him slack there. The middle weekend, he's by himself. The final weekend, we did it the past couple of years. We brought in the legend Bob Tallman. He's been announcing rodeo for, since I guess the first rodeo ever started is what Bobby T says. But he's a legend in the industry, and he'll do the final 4 performances with Boyd. And I mean, it's a full package trying to get in all the names and all the sponsors and all the liners, and it gives them a little bit of the break. And we'll actually bring Andy back for the final 2 performances just for a little insurance. And if everything's going smooth, it's great. If we need him, we might do some shoot side interviews for some TV and some, on-cam stuff and some B-roll things. But it's a good thing to have that great a talent. I've got the best talent, that does basically 2 of the most recognized rodeos out there, Houston and here. And I've got the same announcers at each one.
Now, one of the favorite features of entertainment at the rodeo is, of course, the clowns. But there is a difference between a clown or a bullfighter and an entertainer. Explain what that is.
Boy, the word clown is almost out. It's almost shunned when you bring it up. Hey, are you the clown? They're like, oh no, I'm a bullfighter or I'm an entertainer. The bullfighter is just what he is. He's not there really. I mean, they're there to provide a little bit of entertainment, but their primary paycheck is earned for being right there. And I mean, it's kind of like being a Secret Service. Your life goes on the line before that contestant, and you'll see them dive in the middle of things. You'll see them dive on top of a bull. If a bull rider gets hung up in a bucking rope, you'll see them literally jumping on top of them. And there's usually 2, and they do an outstanding job. So that's a bullfighter. A clown we might have out on the midway with a little carnival ride. But the man in the can is now an entertainer. And they're such a key part of rodeo that a lot of people don't realize what they do. If something's happening in a shoot or something's not going right, we have a drain on time is what I call it. You'll see him and the announcer start going back and forth. You'll see John Harrison this year, who's going to be our entertainer. He'll be working it up in the stands. But those guys know not to get in the way of the flow of the rodeo. But you'll notice if they're getting a lot of time, there's something else that maybe isn't moving as smooth, maybe a horse isn't feeding down the chute or a steer's not going. Those guys are awesome. So John Harrison, he's an entertainer. He'll do some acts during the middle of the rodeo. I can't let him out, but I've seen some on YouTube. It's just hilarious. He's good, clean family entertainment. But he's there to make sure the rodeo is good. And it's a little bit of a break. You know, maybe some people are tired of watching this, and you know, there's some kids that don't see that have the passion for it that we do, or maybe somebody else, their parents. But you know what? When the entertainer rolls out there and does some family fun, he's there. He's well paid for that.
So one extremely popular addition from a few years ago has now become a staple of the San Angelo Rodeo, and you've mentioned it a couple of times, the cinch shootout. It's kind of hard to say, but talk about why the cinch shootout has become so popular and one of your most popular draws.
Oh, it's our biggest ticket. It's what we're known for. Cinch is very happy to be the sponsor of this, and they've been a great sponsor of ours. They haven't been, the cinch shootout has not been PRC sanctioned until this year. This is the first time the money won at the cinch shootout, the $106,000 won there, will actually count towards their individual earnings that qualify them for the national finals. So that's cool, but it's a different format. And in rodeo, we're running 2 go-rounds for basically 2 weeks. So who's first and second place could change nightly. And so when you go there, you realize they had a great score or a good time, but you don't realize, you know, are they the winner or the loser? A lot of events, they like a winner and a loser, and they want to see that right now. The cinch shootout started out as an 8-4. 8 of them ran, the top 4 came back, and the winner won it all. And I mean, that has been great. This year it's going to be 10-3, and we're going to do all events. We can't leave anything out, so we're adding steer wrestling and team roping. We're going to run the 10 best ones. The best 3 teams come back, and we declare a winner that night. I mean, every one of those, and there's 15 grand up. That's a pretty good chunk of change to win in just, you know, 15 seconds worth of labor. But the crowd loves it. I mean, it's a performance-based, fast action. You know, we get a little bit looser with it, and there's a lot more excitement that goes. And so when the shootout goes down, there's a lot of electricity in that Coliseum. And people show that by voting for it with their dollar. That's the ticket I want.
So you mentioned a little bit earlier your rodeo committee, your volunteers. You have about 50 or 60 on that committee. And so people may be listening to this or watching this and thinking, that would be really cool to be involved in. But they may not realize that you just don't show up and immediately start serving on the rodeo committee.
No, you don't. And we have lots of committees out there. I mean, to give any one preference over the other would not be doing any of the others justice. What I say about a volunteer is you have to love it so much you're willing to do it so you won't see it so somebody else can. And you're not going to be out there in the limelight. We have I will say firsthand, my engagement is with the rodeo committee. And there's people outside making sure everybody has their ticket, making sure all the tickets scanned. We take care of the wine tent. We get the day sheets out, the program guides, make sure our hospitality rooms and our VIP rooms are going great. And they are literally working their tail off from 5 in the afternoon until we close the last, you know, basically the last shoot gate. We're making sure we get them all out. We're making sure the media scripts are ready. I mean, making sure the power's there, we didn't lose anything. It's not the easy, glamorous limelight job, but the people that do it have such a passion and dedication. It's awesome. I mean, we're very blessed to have who we have.
So if people want any information whatsoever about the rodeo, the stock show, creative art exhibits, trail ride, what's the best place for them to get that?
SanAngeloRodeo.com. Just go to our website, click information. Nothing that we've said here, you can't find a basis to or a catalyst to work off of that for an avenue to get in touch with somebody. It's by far our most centralized point of information.
We've been talking with Tom Thompson. He is the marketing director for the San Angelo Stock Show and Rodeo Association. And as he said, if you want any information whatsoever about San Angelo's signature event, please go to sanangelorodeo.com. And we hope you'll join us for the next episode of The City.